Ghosts, angels, demons, fairies, vampires, werewolves. All those stories you heard as a kid. All those stories Mom and Dad said weren't true. For most people, that's all they are. Myth, legend. Occasionally people find there is something out there in the dark. Many years ago, I trained with the late Lou Gentili, one of the best-known demonologists in the United States. When he died, he asked I continue his legacy. I've been continuing investigations since his death, but I also wanted to bring back his efforts to educate the public about what's really out there. Join us for a brand new YouTube series, The Paranormal Encyclopedia, with me, your host, Kevin Mears, demonologist and paranormal investigator, while we investigate what really goes bump in the night.
So, before you think this is all about doom and gloom, well, first of all, it is. Second of all, that is not entirely our purpose. We're here to entertain. We're here to tell you. And you're probably wondering who the hell I am. I'm not the demonologist. It's my job to ask questions. It's my job to be the skeptic. I've got some background in history, particularly about witches. But I'm here to hypothetically be your voice. I'm Drew. Welcome to Paranormal Encyclopedia.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Paranormal Encyclopedia. I'm up here at Halloween in the Catskills. I keep confusing the two.
There's a lot of steampunk stuff going on, I've noticed.
Yeah,
so
and it's a Jeff Mock event. He's always doing steampunk something or other.
Yes.
But we're finally doing an interview I've been promising, I think, for at least the last year. But I'm here with the very talented Lilith Laura and her husband. Why don't you two introduce yourselves and what you do?
I'm a professional storyteller. I do some burlesque and improv as well, but I think the storytelling is what we're really focused on today.
I'm Micah Edwards. I'm an intermittent writer. I've written a couple of the stories that are in Tales Untold. I also write superhero noir and other things that capture my interest.
Yes, I've read your version of Fall of the House of Usher.
Excellent.
Which is, I highly recommend everybody check it out. It's an enormous amount of fun.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Ricky's Spooky House is the name of the book.
Thank you, because I was never going to remember that.
It's all good.
So what got you into storytelling?
Honestly, so I have a degree in theater from Rutgers University.
Very cool.
And a couple of the classes I took were sort of fairy tale oriented. I took a workshop on storytelling, and I took my senior project was working with a group of other people in what was called the Shoestring Players. And what we did was it was all acted out, but it was bare bones, and we did fairy tales. We did like 4 or 5 fairy tales for the show. Fast forward a few years, I was working Ren fairs, and I had a really good time, working as a performer at the Ren fairs. But for the most part, those are unpaid gigs.
Yeah.
And I had this degree in theater, and I wanted to be using it for something. And people who do get paid at Ren fairs pretty reliably are the indie acts. And so I sort of sat down and brainstormed, like, what do I know that I can do by myself? Doesn't require other people. I don't need, other people's talents or even just, like, a partner to play off of necessarily. And I kind of came back to that storytelling workshop. And the first event that I was applying for was actually the Totally Normal event, which is an event that Jeff Mack ran once, and it never happened again.
I think I remember hearing about it.
Yeah, but it was a Jeff Mack event. It was 16 plus, so I knew I didn't want to do like kidsy storytelling. I wanted to do stories for adults. And the more I got into it, just the more fascinated I became with all of the variations in the old stories and all of the shit that gets cut out.
Oh, tell me.
Not just by Disney, but like any modern kids storyteller.
Yeah, I know what you mean. As my viewers know, I've been doing the Forgotten Fairy Tales. I want to eventually get into telling like the original, older, I should say, versions of the Hansel and Gretel and Cinderella, just to give people an idea of how very different.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm actually working on a sort of similar project. I'm going through the Disney movies, all the fairy tales that they've taken, because not all of their movies are fairy tale based, and sitting down and really doing my homework and going through and rereading a bunch of different versions and reading some scholarly works about Snow White, about Cinderella, etc., and then watching the Disney version and sort of making notes and going, oh, look at this shit they changed, and sort of comparing the two. Yeah, so I'm not telling the story, but I'm going through and sort of comparing
and doing an analysis. It seems like it's a logical. Definitely, when you get into that, and hopefully by then I'll start going into telling those stories. There seems like a nice overlap of I'm telling the story now. Go over to this channel and check out my friend Lilith, who's going to explain where Disney got it wrong.
I'm all about that.
Yeah,
cross promotion is great. Yeah.
Yes, that's something I want to set up with. Just there's so many cool people doing so many awesome things. It's like let's network.
Absolutely.
But for my viewers, I will definitely have links up once your channel's up and off the ground.
Well, I do already have a YouTube channel, but it's mostly vlogs, and it's not storytelling oriented necessarily. So my channel's there; it'll all be on the same channel. It's just that the fairy tale stuff will be under the title "The Grim Reader."
Okay, so check the description of this video. In fact, we'll put a link in
Perfect.
there. In fact, I'm sure my producer / fiance can just put a link right on the screen, right? Yeah. So we'll get a link on the screen. We'll put it in the description.
Perfect.
So, what's your favorite fairy tale?
Ooh, allowing for literary fairy tales.
Yes, absolutely.
My favorite fairy tale is The Nightingale and the Rose by Oscar Wilde.
I don't know that one.
I won't do it justice because part of what's so beautiful about it is his language, and I don't have it memorized. But essentially, it's a student. Again, we're talking about Victorian era England. A student has been sitting either in his window by the garden or traipsing through the garden, complaining about how he's so in love with this woman, but she'll only go to this social event with him if he brings her a red rose, and there are no red roses in his garden. Whatever is he going to do? And he goes into the house and lays down and takes a nap. And a nightingale has heard him, and just believes that love is the highest thing that you could ever achieve, and so she's determined to help this student find a red rose. And so she goes to the first rose bush and says, hey, do you make red roses? And no, my roses are white, but go ask my brother in another part of the garden, do you make red? No, my roses are yellow. Finally finds a bush that makes red roses, but it's been damaged by storms.
Ooh.
And so the nightingale is distraught and says, well, what can I possibly do? And the rose bush tells her, there's one way that I can make a red rose for you. And essentially the piece of magic that is performed is that she sings her sweetest song about the beauty of love, about all of this, while she pierces her heart on one of the bush's thorns.
Oh, wow.
And so it's this huge, great sacrifice. This particular bush is right outside the student's window, so he sees the red rose almost immediately, picks it, goes to his lady love, who laughs in his face, because the whole red rose thing was really just was a polite way of saying, I'm really not into it. Yeah. And throws the rose in the gutter. And the student comes home convinced that love is a lost cause and he's going to devote himself to his studies. And it's just such a beautiful, tragic story that I can't not love it. And then, like I said,
I'm gonna go look this up. It's fantastic.
And Wilde's language on top of it. I mean, he's one of my favorite writers. So combine the two.
I think I've read a little bit of him, and he's an amazing author.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so I have a question here.
Yes.
Why is it in fairy tale land the only flowers that ever grow anywhere are roses? There's no tulips. There's no daisies, certainly.
I don't know. There are only 3 birds too: swans, ravens, and nightingales.
Well, that's fair.
But you have a point, because I'm just thinking about it. It's like, even when you think about mythology and folklore, half the time it's still a rose.
It's still a rose, yeah.
Apparently, if you cannot injure yourself on it, they are not interested in that flower.
It's like, I want to do, for my Valentine's Day episode for Forgotten Fairy Tales, I want to do the story of Tristan and Isolde. Mm-hmm. And if memory serves, when the 2 flowers grow out of the grave and twist around each other, it's roses again.
I think you're right, yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's, I mean, chicken and the egg, but it's such an iconic symbol of love and passion, etc., that like I said, chicken and the egg. I don't know which came first, but at this point they're so intertwined that it's hard to separate out.
Twined like 2 roses.
Yes.
So I have to ask, and this is definitely for you. So, what inspired you to turn an iconic Poe story, The Fall of the House of Esher, into Ricky's Spooky House?
I think that people take themselves very seriously.
Yes.
And I like to poke people in their ego balloons. And Poe is absolutely the worst possible thing to read to your 2-year-old. And so I decided to find a way to do that. But it absolutely started out as a joke. This was back when LiveJournal was a going concern.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a daily blog on there, and I would write things. And one day, it occurred to me it'd be very funny to do the Fall of the House of Usher for kids. And so I wrote it up, and that was, I mean, the version that's in the book is essentially that post. I think I changed 4 or 5 words in there, but basically, it was just a one-off that ended up...
why the hell not?
It was a joke it was very funny, and then I let it die for years, and somehow it came back up. And theoretically, there will be a sequel at some point if I get my act together. Tom's willing to illustrate it, so I've got the kids' version of The Raven written.
Oh, wow.
So it's all written. The problem with writing children's poetry is you're going to be compared to Dr. Seuss, and that's not going to work out well for you.
No, especially not. Yeah, this is not Dr. Seuss.
Well, it is a thing that it's called. I believe it's What's That Bird, and it's a children's book of bird identification because a bird is landed outside his bedroom window, and he's trying to figure out what this inky black bird is, and so it's just about ducks and quails and whatever else. And no, it's not that. Ducks are yellow. This one's black. Again, intentionally a very goofy way to handle it.
Oh, I love The Raven. A lot of people love The Raven. Yeah. But I love that idea.
That was a funny one, actually, because Tom, the artist for Ricky's Spooky House, was asking me if I had any follow-up plans. Like, yeah, I was meant to write The Raven as a kid's book. And I was flipping through my email looking for something, and I found I'd already written it years previously and totally forgotten about it. I'm like, good news. I've sent myself a gift from the past.
You were planning ahead.
Yeah.
Ahead, planning is such a hard word to use.
Lucking out ahead.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I was trying to make it, paint it in the best possible light.
And I appreciate that. But let's be honest here. I don't plan a lot.
The best plans are usually the ones you don't actually come up with.
Yes.
Keep in mind, when I was growing up, I did theater myself, in high school at least. But I never thought... Well, actually, through elementary school, I was terrified of public speaking. But, I did theater. I got over that. And then one night, I was working with my mentor, the late Lou Gentili, who had a radio show. And we were hanging out just before the show, and he's like, hey, you know what? Why don't we put you on there and see what happens? 6 hours into a 2-hour show, we decided to turn that into a regular thing.
Nice.
It wasn't planned. It was just, let's see what happens. And, this works.
There you go.
But let's see. What's your favorite of the stories that you've retold?
That's a harder question because that's honestly because a lot of that is tied up in ego and what other people have told me are their favorites.
Mm-hmm.
The two I hear the most that are the most complimented that people come up to me and say, "Oh, I loved your version of this," are Beauty and the Beast and Goldilocks.
I've heard Beauty and the Beast. I actually like I like both of them. I will say.
I told Goldilocks last night, so I'm pretty sure you were there for that one.
Yes, I was there. I heard all of them last night, and then at I want to say Wicked Fair sometime in the past I heard you tell.
So I tell Beauty and the Beast is actually rewinding back to a Totally Normal event. Beauty and the Beast is one of the stories I wrote for that event.
Oh, nice.
And it's just been in my repertoire ever since because it was so well received that, honestly, if I'm at all uncertain about how a show has been going, I'm like, gotta end on Beauty and the Beast then, because I know it's...
It's a very Jeff Mack event type
yeah,
of
story. My version is definitely right for Jeff Mack's events. It's just... definitely told it a lot. I haven't prepped it for this weekend because it's not kid-friendly. I know there are kids present. But I could probably tell it without having prepped it because I've told it so many times.
I'm pretty sure I could tell it without having prepped it.
Oh, God. So, I can't remember what event we were at, but I'm pretty sure it's a Jeff Mack event, but we're at some event, and Micah comes to a lot of my shows. He's, in addition to being a wonderful author, also a wonderful husband who frequently will run back to the room, and I'm like, oh, God, I forgot my tip jar, or, whatever it is that I need. And so he's sitting, a couple rows back, because he's trying to leave room for people who have not seen the show before, etc. And I'm in the middle of Beauty and the Beast, and I'm just sort of scanning the crowd, like I try to make eye contact with various people, and sort of just completely out of happenstance, make eye contact with my husband, who is mouthing the words along with me. Very nearly lost my shit, like almost completely lost track of what I was saying, where I was in the story.
It's cool, I could have picked up for you.
Yeah, you could have.
You just want to start vocalizing it. Good. But Actually, that's, I think, an interesting one. Are there any fairy tales that you like, but you've never quite been able to convert to your own style?
There are, and I'm actually thinking about telling several of them at Glimmerdark, because I agreed to do a kids show at Glimmerdark.
Oh, this is going to be interesting.
It's gonna be interesting. That is the right word, yeah. So like the Buried Moon. I'm blanking. The Juniper Tree. Those are two of my favorites. That there's no particular twist I want to put on them. The Buried Moon's a very straightforward story, but it really resonates with me for whatever reason. But there's not any place that I'm like, oh, wouldn't it? You know, like when I read The Nightingale by Hans Christian Andersen, I read it and go, man, that fucking emperor, he deserved to die. I can't believe the Nightingale came back and saved him. And so there's a very clear path for me in terms of writing my own version versus something like The Buried Moon or Juniper Tree, where I'm like, damn, that was a good story. It was a good story. Like, I don't really necessarily have a
There's some great stories. It's like, no, and you know, as I do, it's like you read the original versions of these stories and so different.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, you can tell the older versions of Little Red Riding Hood without messing around with it, just because the wolf doesn't just want to eat her.
Honestly,
some versions she dies horribly.
Have you heard my version of Red Riding Hood?
I don't think I have.
With the exception of, plastering billboard sign, this story was about sex, at the end of the story, everything in that story is pulled from older versions. Like, I've blended a couple of different versions, but it's all from older versions. I didn't make anything up for that version.
You don't need to. It's just... Or, Cinderella, the pecking the eyes out and cutting
Oh, yeah. No, Cinderella's much bloodier than Disney would have you believe.
So, of the Disney versions, and I have a suspicion I can guess this, but which of the Disney versions annoys you the most?
The older ones are mostly okay, because while they cut out stuff, they didn't they cut out some stuff, but they didn't necessarily make huge changes. It's almost cliche to say it, but I think right now it would be Frozen.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's not just because it bears so little resemblance to its source material, because I'm all about adaptations. Like, I actually quite like Disney's Beauty and the Beast. Like, I think that is a good adaptation
It's a very
of that
beautifully
story.
done story.
Yeah. But Frozen's not just completely different from its source material. What bothers me about it so much is everyone's holding up and going, oh, look at this feminist movie and two strong female protagonists. I'm like, okay, well, there were two women in the story. Neither of whom I would particularly describe as strong. One of them's a moron who thinks she can do anything and clearly can't. And the other one's this, like, insanely repressed, dangerous mad woman who's a sympathetic antagonist. No matter how many times you call her a protagonist, she's just not.
No, she is. Insofar as the movie has an antagonist, she is the antagonist.
Right, yeah, she's sympathetic. You want her to be redeemed in the end, but she's not really the protagonist.
No.
Lilith's mainly a big fan of Once Upon a Time.
Oh,
where
Jesus
she feels
fucking
that Disney's
Christ.
really shown and broken out of their mold.
So if you ever follow me on Twitter or have me on Facebook,
Which I do.
I live tweet watching that piece of shit show. It's the biggest train wreck I've ever watched, and I just can't stop watching it.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, like the first season had some issues, but they dealt with stories that Disney hadn't touched before and did some interesting things and had a clear plot. Like, there was some bad acting and some, super Disney, like, good versus evil black and white stuff. Oh, I do too, and some of them are like friends or fans of mine who will comment on my post and be like, oh, but I like that part, and I'm like, and you're allowed to, it's just that you're wrong.
Yeah. You have a freedom to be wrong.
Right, yeah, exactly, and I'm glad that you're enjoying it, right? Like, I don't want to take your joy away from you, but at the same time, I cannot possibly agree with you.
No, I have a similar situation. I like the show Supernatural.
Okay.
But, especially in the later seasons, there's times where we're just doing, no.
That's fair. We only ever watched the first season of that, and it wrapped so neatly at the end of the first season.
The first season is very well done. Actually, the first two seasons are very well done. And it's a fairly self-contained story, because it ends the plot of, well, they're trying to find the thing that killed Mom.
Right.
But after that, especially when you hit season 4 when the angels show up, and more so when you hit season 5 in the sort of Judeo-Christian apocalypse. And I know I'm hardly the only one. I know there's the episode near the end of season 5 called Tamer of the Gods, where the devil shows up and just kills half of the gods in the world.
Oh, gosh.
That's
problematic.
A ton of non-Christians, I know. It didn't bother me as much
yeah.
being a Christian, but I do certainly see the point. There's sort of, it's like, at the very least, when you look at some of the gods there, Odin, Lord Ganesha.
That's it. Is that absolutely?
Yeah.
Talking about like the mythology, etc.
Yeah.
Absolutely, the devil should be able to at least go toe to toe with any number of gods and probably win some of those fights, right?
Yeah.
But especially when you start looking at like Norse mythologies, where so many of their gods are warriors in addition to whatever else their realms are.
Yeah, Thor wasn't actually there, and the one thing that sort of equalizes it is Odin doesn't have a spear.
Yeah.
I'm not certainly saying that the bigger problem I have isn't necessarily that Lucifer won that fight. It's that basically you just see Odin hit the ground. You don't even see a fight.
That's problematic.
And it's like, no, that's not Odin. Odin is there. The one person, and in fairness, she is, of the gods they assembled, the one that should have put up one hell of a fight, and she does, is Kali, who is the demon fighter in mythology.
Kali is actually my patroness.
Yeah.
You're Christian, I'm Wiccan. Kali's my patroness, and I try. It's always a very fine line to walk between going, look, I can't help it. She chose me. She's my goddess, and being respectful of Hinduism and that whole culture and religious tradition. But yeah, I mean, the only thing that stopped her destruction of the world was that her husband laid down in front of her, and she realized she was stepping on him, and realized how massively out of line she'd gotten. She dances the end of the world.
Yeah.
She shouldn't go down in a fight to
She didn't lose. It basically
angel.
kind of went into a stalemate position where Gabriel, who it's revealed was in fact Loki.
Okay.
On the run. Basically, the Archangel Gabriel left heaven, went into witness protection program, decided to take over Loki. And you find out he's the first angel you ever see in the series because he appears as a trickster in the second season.
Okay.
And apparently they had a thing going way back in the day. She never knew what he actually was. And he gets her out because he still has a thing for her. But you see her and the devil go at it, and it's pretty close to a stalemate.
That's fair. And it's interesting.
And at least she put up the fights.
Yeah, well, when you start crossing pantheons like that...
I think if you crossed the pantheon, it should have gone the other way. I think Loki believe he's been an archangel this whole time makes a lot more sense than an archangel pretending to be a trickster god.
That's
Loki
true.
sneaking his way into someone else's religion makes perfect sense. Back in the D&D cosmology, one of the gods is
Yes, I play D&D.
Well, his name's Saint Cuthbert.
Yes, I know.
I love there's a god named Saint Cuthbert because probably what happened was just he was some paladin who got very powerful and became a demigod.
He was human originally.
But it's much funnier to assume that he was an avatar of a god who went down into someone else's religion, got himself sainted, and later on went, surprise! Look who you sainted!
And when you keep in mind Christian folklore, it makes sense when you keep in mind, St. Bridget was originally a pagan goddess.
Yeah.
There's a couple of, St. Christopher was a pagan god.
Yeah.
And it's like, you could do that story easily.
Right.
And it's always been good at that. You look at Easter. It's named after Eos. This is not a Christian holiday. It's like, so we have...
I thought it was... I'm not
Ostra.
It's Eostra is the spelling, and I'm not positive on the pronunciation. But...
Regardless, it's not...
Right.
The thing is, there's actually a lot of debate about that, because there's only two references that ever refer to Ostra as a pagan goddess. One is a single Christian 7th century text that briefly mentions Ostra is the goddess of spring, and her holiday is in April. And then it's not mentioned again until I want to say the 19th century by the Brothers Grimm. So there's a lot of
reference.
debate about was Ostra actually a pagan goddess, or is it simply the name for the festival that marks spring?
Yeah,
And that's
I don't
fair,
know.
but
Ostra, Eos is Latin for dawn.
Fair
which
enough.
again is not Jesus. It's a sun thing.
Absolutely. I was saying, either way, I think we can all agree that the bunnies and eggs are symbols of fertility, not necessarily symbols of resurrection.
Bunnies and the eggs. I did a whole episode on this, and it's very interesting. What people think they know about those symbols is a little more complicated than that.
Mm-hmm.
There's some evidence that, yes, eggs specifically were a pagan symbol, but the pagans might have borrowed it from the Christians.
Oh, interesting.
Because the oldest records we have are of Christians using the symbol. We know that pagans used it too, but as we know that paganism influenced Christianity, Christianity also influenced paganism in another number of places.
Well, that's one of the strange lines in the Bible. The Bible is when I say Bible, I
Yeah.
mean Hebrew Bible because I'm Jewish. But it's where they're we're monotheistic. There is only one God. By the way, don't put up poles to Asherah. Well, that's a weird thing to write in a book where there's only one God. Yeah, we're just saying. Asherah's
also-
here,
yeah.
knock it off. And so she's one of the few gods mentioned by name in the Hebrew Bible.
There's a few
Is it-
more, but yeah.
You know, she's one of it's her, Moloch. Those are the two I can think of, actually.
That's the only one that's coming. And,
Yeah. And Moloch's the same thing, is quit sacrificing things to him.
Yeah.
We know you're doing it, knock it off, you're supposed to be monotheists.
Well, that's just it. There's a line, and I'd have to look it up, but there's a line in one of the Psalms that actually talks about a council of gods.
Interesting.
And the traditional Christian interpretation of this, which is wrong, is that it's talking about the Holy Trinity. The problem with this is it talks about God, Yahweh, standing amongst the council of God. So he's having a conversation with himself.
Yeah, no, I see
And
this.
two,
It's in Taxi.
more tellingly, he judges the council and finds some of them evil. He doesn't find them all evil. But, okay, if you're saying it's just the Holy Trinity, you just said some of them are evil.
Right. That's at least a third of the Trinity.
Yeah. This is a problem.
I'm telling you, it's God in front of the three-part mirror going, you talking to me? I don't see anyone else here. You must be talking to me.
There's a theory I've seen, and actually it came from a Christian priest that I sort of like, of, there's this idea, okay, you have God the creator of the universe, there's God the Father, and the Holy Trinity, as I said, I'm Christian, but that he created other divinities and gave them dominion over specific areas. Now, the Bible says, I'm the Lord your God, you all know the gods before me. It's talking to the Jews. That's the God of the Jews. Don't go worshiping the God of the Canaanites because you're not a Canaanite. Which is
Interesting.
Yeah, I
a
like it.
form of philosophy called henotheism. So,
Yeah.
to some extent, to my mind, your goddesses and your gods, you're not wrong. You're part of a greater whole that we're all worshiping.
Well, we actually, a word that you'll
Welcome to
hear.
Hinduism, also.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
would say there's a word that we've totally made up as far as I can tell, but it's polyhenotheism, which is because henotheism is going, this is our God, and yeah, there are other gods, but we don't worship them. Whereas polyhenotheism is, these are our gods, multiple, and yes, we acknowledge that there are other gods,
But
but,
these are
who
our
has
gods.
the time to worship all of them?
We'd be at it if we worshipped every god in the world, we'd be at it forever.
Right, but if all I did was say their name once a day, it would still take me more than a day to get through all of the gods, yeah.
There's a few thousand religions alone, never mind all
right,
the gods.
Right, exactly.
And as I understand Hinduism, there is this idea of there is one divine all, the Brahma, but there are all of these gods that are our way of understanding the Brahma. So no religion is wrong. You're just understanding the greater truth.
Well, now we're back into the four blind men and the elephant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the way I see it. I'm, of course, a huge Jim Butcher fan, and he uses it as well. And it's like, I'm human. I'm finite. I do not feel comfortable saying you're wrong to believe something other than what I believe.
Right.
Unless what you believe tells you to go out and kill people, in which case I think we're all going to say you're wrong.
Well, that's, back in college, I was a member of the Rutgers University Pagan Student Association. And the gentleman who was the president before I was, we were out for a walk together the beginning of my sophomore year. I'd just taken over as president of the club. And he, because he was still listed on our website and everything, had been contacted by the guy who was in charge of the Campus Crusade for Christ. Because they wanted to host a panel discussion, and they had a bunch of different Christian clubs, and I think they'd contacted Hillel House, and and wanted, and they were to their credit trying really hard to be very inclusive.
Yeah.
And my friends said, well, what do you want us to, like, what is the panel going to be about?
Yeah.
And about our disagreements and who's wrong and who's right and why. And my friend said, well, I mean, I'll do your panel if you want, but I'm not going to argue with anyone. We're all on the same mountain, and it's okay that we're taking different paths up it. We're all going to reach the same zenith.